Hello, Nuran, are you there? Can you all hear me? Just checking my mic.
Yeah, we
Hi,
can
Nati.
hear you.
Yes, we can hear you as well.
Okay.
How are you doing today?
Good, good, good. I hope everyone is fine too. So thank you very
Yes.
much for joining these webinars. Nuran, can you try to see if you can share your screen, or I can share the presentation depending of
Yeah.
what works for you?
Yeah. Please, can you share my presentation?
Okay. Okay. So thank you again, everyone. We are here for the webinars in partnership with GS1 and IAPHL. And this webinar will be on implementing pharmaceutical traceability using global standards. I don't know if you have all received the presentation of these webinars, but I will just quickly present the webinars, but also the people that are invited and that will be the speakers. So today we'll receive Nuran Idris. She's the manager. Hello? Okay, sorry. So she's the manager of Healthcare Africa at GS1 Global Office, and we'll also receive John Olusola, which is the Chief Regulatory Officer from the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control.
Things that happened before that incident. But all in all, we always encourage
Sorry,
people,
if you can check your
especially
microphones.
when
Thank you. So this webinar will be an introduction or a reintroduction of the concept of pharmaceutical traceability using global GS1 standards, including showcasing developments across many countries in Africa and around the world, with a specific focus from Nigerian's National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control. So Nuran Idris joined GS1 Global Office in January 2020. Her primary role at GS1 Global Office healthcare team is to raise awareness and support stakeholders working in and for Africa in establishing pharmaceutical traceability system using GS1 standards. Nuran's experience have seen her engaging multiple stakeholders from the grassroots level up in local and international settings. From the digital health angle, Nuran has managed systems deployment, sensitize and train stakeholders, efforts which have supported digital supply chain transformation across multiple countries over the course of her career. So with the power of standards, Nuran strongly believes that even more efficiency and mostly improved care to patients can be achieved in developing countries. Nuran is a political scientist and a global e-health specialist by training. We want to welcome you, Nuran. Thank you to be there.
Thank you, Nati.
Thank you. So we'll also receive John, as I just said. John is a microbiologist, a data scientist, and public health professional with specialty in medical statistics and lead to technical team driving the implementation of traceability for pharmaceuticals in Nigeria, using GSI standards. So John is part of the team leveraging innovative technologies to improve regulatory outcome from the NAFDAC and currently represents Nigeria as a chair of working group on traceability of medical products of the World Health Organization. Member states' mechanism on the substandards and falsified medical product. So John is a seasoned data analyst with competence in development and deployment of data products, IT-related system, and use of field detection device, some of which are currently deployed for the NAFDAC to improve regulatory control, support product traceability, and market surveillance. John has represented NAFDAC on task team of the Verification and Traceability Initiative. This is a collaborative effort of international partners that seek to provide access to trusted health product data and resources for verification and traceability of health products. So John is actively involved in ongoing projects implementing various pilots for traceability of COVID-19 vaccines and other vaccines as well as AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria commodities distributed in Nigeria. So we would like to thank Dr. John Asula to be there as well. Dr. John.
Thank you very much for inviting me for this webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Dr. Nuran Idris, you can take the floor.
Thank you, Nati. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here. And apologies, I cannot turn on my video. I have a small challenge, but really happy to be sharing with you a little bit about GS1 and traceability. So as Nati shared earlier, just briefly, I'm Nuran and I work at GS1. And I've invited my colleague, John Kayode, who's the Chief Regulatory Authority Officer at NAFDAC. And the whole idea is to give you a very brief, very condensed introduction to GS, a live implementation case from Nigeria. So we have just a very brief a very brief presentation, but the rest of it will be really interaction based, and I'll really rely on you to ask questions and whatnot. So next slide, Nati. So I wanted to start by, asking you all to briefly tell us where you're listening in from. I see some of you have already done that. So if you can just continue just mentioning either the country, we just really want to understand who we are speaking to, basically, right? So just put a note on the chat telling us where you're from. If it's just an agency and a country, that would be enough. Thank you. Next slide, Nati, please. And next one again. Yes, so this is what I wanted to start us from, right? To explain to you the challenge and the why we're thinking about traceability, why we're thinking about GS1 standards, and why we're having these conversations in the first place. So this is nothing new, nothing new to you, the challenge of counterfeit medication, right? They are existing all over the country, all over the world, in multiple countries, in Africa, in Americas, in Europe, in Asia, really everywhere we have heard cases of counterfeit medication. So if you take a look at the, at the screenshots that you see, at the photos that you see on the screen, the question would be, are you able to tell just by looking that one of these medication is counterfeit, either the one on the right or the one on the left? chances are you're probably nodding your head, shaking your head saying, no, it's not possible to identify which one is counterfeit. So that's really the whole idea that, okay, we need to be able to have much more in order to better understand whether a product is counterfeit or not. So if you go to the next slide, Nati, I just included a screenshot that I took maybe a few days ago. Just one more. I took a few days ago from WHO. Okay, these are just more examples. Keep going. And again, yes, this one. So this is just a screenshot, as you can see. No, sorry, just back to the WHO screen. Just go back. Back again. Yes, this one. Yes, so here I wanted to just give you a rough idea. Sorry, next. Just one next. A rough idea on where you can find counterfeit medications today as we speak. So this is the screenshot from WHO, which you can definitely take a look on your own, and you can see really that WHO is trying is doing their part in trying to capture the counterfeit medication. I don't have the authority to speak for WHO, but I can imagine that this number is only a small representation of the actual challenge of counterfeit medication. So on the next slide, we show what we consider a perfect supply chain. Nati, next slide. So as you can see on this slide here, you have, I think I would call it an ideal supply chain, right? So you have on the one hand, the manufacturers manufacturing their product, and then that product going to the distributor, and then going to the distribution centers, and then ultimately coming to the hospitals or pharmacies, and finally to the patient's hand. So this is what we hope that every medication has to pass through. Every medication has to go through the supply chain. And in this case, counterfeit medication would not be a challenge, right? So so this is kind of like the vision that I'd like you to maybe just think a little bit more about as you are as you're navigating, as we are going through this conversation in the next few minutes. So on the next slide, we will see. I just talked a little bit more about, what needs to happen in order for us to get to this ideal supply chain. And sorry, I will slow down a little bit more, understanding also that we have maybe not non-native speakers all over during as part of this call. So what needs to happen in order to get to that ideal supply chain, the picture that I showed you on the previous slide? So we need to have products that are uniquely identified, that they're consistently marked using a barcode, and that this barcode is scanned throughout the supply chain. And of course, that information, necessary information, is also available in the background. So this is, and at a very high level, what needs to happen to get there? We need stakeholders to work together. And just what you have on the screen here is just a rough example of some of these stakeholders. So we have the regulators who need to identify the products. We need the manufacturers who would then, regulators who set the guidelines and the regulation. The manufacturer who identify and mark the product and share this information. And then we have distributors, suppliers, the shippers, and then ultimately even the hospitals really scanning. And we hope that at least when we get to the exchange with Nigeria, you will be able to have a better idea, a little bit more understanding about what these roles are. So again, I'm still trying to build on a background before I tell you exactly what GS1 is. So if you have any questions, of course, please leave it as well in the chat, and we'll definitely get to it at some point. On the next slide, Nati, please. Yes, this is now when I wanted to introduce you what exactly GS1. So GS1 is a neutral, not-for-profit organization. We're a standards development organization that is neutral, and it's not for profit, and that facilitates the supply chain, the smooth operate that facilitates the supply chain, right? So I'm saying facilitate the supply chain because there are multiple benefits that you can see when you are using the GS1 standards, and some of these are included. Nati, if you go on the next slide. And one more, I will come back to this one later. But on the next slide, you will be able to see, yes, on this slide here, you'll be able to see some of the benefits of how GS1 are enabling the supply chain. So we are enabling patient safety, There's inventory management capabilities. There's improving managed product recalls. There's so many benefits that really you could use by having that unique identification of the product, unique capturing, and then the scanning. But then I think the center of it all, this is why it is also in all capitals, that's patient safety. Ultimately, what all that we're doing is for the purpose of enabling patient safety. So what we are having all these conversations, we're introducing all of this because ultimately we are focusing on on patient safety. And yes. If we go on the previous slide, I just also wanted to talk to you about, and the reason why I'm just really touching bits and pieces is to give you a general idea. And of course, this is not supposed to be, it's not meant to be comprehensive in any way. So on the previous slide, you will see that we have a GS1 Global Office, and GS1 Global Office normally develops the works with the stakeholders to develop the standards, to develop training materials, to really get the stakeholders talking. And then we also have GS1 member organizations. Actually, the number that we have there has a small error. It's 115 as we speak, 15 of which are in Africa, 15 member organizations. So these are GS1 offices that are placed in different parts of the world. And their role is to really support the use and the translation of the standards in the local context. So again, sorry, Nati, go next, 1, 2. And yes, so this is the standard. This is another important slide that we also used a lot in our conversations. So we have the GS1 standards enable you to identify, capture, and share. So this, I would say, this is like the framework of how the GS1 standards or where the GS1 standards are applicable. And on identify, this is the blue part. You can see there's different items there. We have the manufacturing sites or locations, and then on one hand we have products, we have shipment packages, and then on the other hand we have the products. And then on the capture part, this is the pink part. This is the capture. So GS1 also develops standards on how you can systematically capture the barcode. So meaning that if you are scanning a barcode from Tanzania, or if you're scanning a barcode from India, or if you're scanning a barcode from South Africa or Cote d'Ivoire, or wherever you are, you should, in principle, be able to scan the barcode in the similar environment without necessarily a lot of complications. And then we also have various standards that you can use to share this information. So I don't see any. Okay, is Zambia a member of GS1? No, GS1. Zambia is not yet. Zambia does not have a member organizations, although Zambia is using GS1 is using GS1 standards to enable their health supply chain. So please continue to put the questions in the chat. Nati, maybe we'll also take a small pause here, and then we get a little bit more engagement from the group and try and get if you can publish the first poll, please.
Exactly. So we have a poll. Let me try to share it. Okay. Let me know if you can see it. So basically the poll is to have a sense from you to know if you have heard about GSI before and the concept of product traceability. Thank you.
So we'll give that a minute. If you can kindly fill in the poll.
So we have 20 responses, over 30. If the rest can continue to fill, so that we reach at least 80%.
Thank you, Nati. Can you just stop it now and display the results, please?
Okay.
Share results. Yes, thank you. So it's quite interesting that I think some of you have 61% of you have heard about GS1 before, and well 39% haven't. So we'll hopefully by the end of this you will have at least heard of GS1. But you haven't heard about product traceability. That is quite interesting. So we'll spend a little bit more time talking about that one and how that is being enabled by GS1 standards. Thank you, Nati. You can please close this.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So please, I see there's still a few questions. Oh, yeah, I see a few. Nati, please. So that is just a very brief overview about what is GS1, what is GS1 standards, and how the GS1 standards are used. So Nati, can you go on the next slide, please?
Okay. We have one more question. I don't know if you want to take it.
No, we'll take that later.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, more. Just next. Thank you. Yes. So coming to talk about product traceability, one of the foundational pieces of product traceability is to have products that are uniquely identified. So what you see, just forget about the lines, just focus on the small box there that you see. So we have a box. It has a type of barcode that is called a GS1 data matrix. Normally, people would think that that is a QR code. It's not a QR code. It's a GS1 data matrix. And then we have a GTIN, serial number, expiry date, and a lot number. So all this information, all this information is included in that barcode type, the GS1 data matrix, that data matrix code there. What you see on the top, it's called the GTIN. It stands for Global Trade Item Number, and that is just one of the GS1 standards. And the use of this GS1 standards is to enable you to uniquely identify the product. So you have a GTIN that enables you to uniquely identify the product. And so that is the foundation. And so the idea is then that everywhere along the supply chain, the stakeholders will be using this information in order to verify that this product is indeed the product that was manufactured by this company that was manufactured by this country and that was destined for that particular country. So this is just one building block, but it's a very important building block. And why I have it here, and I'm talking to you a lot about this, is because what we have right now is like I think we have over 70 countries around the world that are using GS1 standards, that have set up traceability using GS1 standards, and they're systematically asking for this same information. They're systematically asking for this information across all the different types, across all the different manufacturers around the world. So this is the global trend, and we're trying to move forward toward asking for the same information, regardless of which country we are asking from. I think somebody joined. Can you please mute? Thank you. Okay. So on the next slide, I give you again a little bit more background about next slide, Nat. Yes, about a little bit more background about which countries are using traceability in order to support traceability, in order to support are using GS1 traceability. Setting up traceability using GS1 standards. So this is the slide here where you see green. It means that these countries are already accepting GS1 standards. They are using GS1 standards. And then the peach represents where the countries have not yet either familiarized themselves with GS1 standards or are not yet setting up traceability using GS1 standards. So on the next slide, as you can see, sorry, before we go to the next slide, as you can see here, there's a lot of peach. So we're going to focus a little bit more on Africa and why, and we're going to focus a little bit more on Africa and why the colors look the way they do. So on the next slide, again, very briefly to tell you a little bit about how this conversation has started. In 2019, we had a GS1 conference, GS1 Healthcare conference in Lagos. And under the leadership of the Director General of NAFDAC, NAFDAC is the regulatory authority in Nigeria. There were a call to action was signed by 25 regulatory authorities in Africa, of which 25 countries, they committed to having a little bit more conversation that will direct them towards setting up product traceability using GS1 standards. So this call to action was signed by 25 countries, and already there's a lot of progress. While in the earlier slide you saw, I think there was a few countries in Africa that had the green. However, on the next slide, you will see that there's more conversations that's happening in many different parts of the world already. Sorry, in many different countries in Africa. So just to give you a summary, what we see here is countries that have either published regulation, that are talking about having regular conversations with their stakeholders around traceability, about product traceability, have published draft regulations, are working on master data or different pieces of enabling product traceability. So that's the foundation. But then I know I haven't quite explained. So before we get to the Q&A part with John, Nati, if you can please go back to the slide that has the ideal supply chain. I think it's the second or so slide, the ideal supply chain. Back again.
I think it's that one, right?
Yes, this one here. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. So when we talk about product traceability, what we are in essence saying is that we want to trace the product as it's moving all throughout the supply chain, right? So we want the manufacturer to identify the product, to put a barcode on it, and that we want then as the product is moving to the distributor and then to the shipper and then to the country, to the country's port, and then to the central medical store, central warehouse, to the hospital, etc., that all of this information you're able to track, to trace the product. So in principle, you have to, at least the vision that we're looking forward to is that at any point in time, you can take a product, you can take a product, log in into this, or look at this system or this application and be able to say, this product that I'm looking for, this product that I have in my hand, actually came from the central warehouse. It was shipped by this company. It was manufactured by this company and whatnot. So that is the ideal situation. Obviously, there are lots of challenges in getting there. There's a lot that needs to be done, a lot of coordination and whatnot. But that's also why we are here, in order to be able to share a little bit more. So maybe I'll take a look and see if there's any other questions, any other questions around traceability. I think there are a lot of questions that I see are around GS1, which I will take towards the end. But please keep your questions in the chat. And at this point, I'd like to invite my colleague, John Kayode, if you can, just to, for you to share, John, for you to share a little bit of your experience. So, John, if you can tell us a little bit more about, and Nati, thank you. You can stop sharing for now. Yeah, or you can just stay on that slide. Thank you. You can just stay on that slide. So John, if you can tell us a little bit more about why Nigeria chose to pursue traceability, what were some of the realities, the challenges that you had?
Yeah, so for Nigeria, we have adopted the use of the GS1 global standards for implementing traceability, and this is basically because we have substandard and falsified medicines, and this has actually led to the increase in the distribution of SF medicines. We have issues with open drug markets, lack of coordination, and we have cross borders within the country, and that also has led to the proliferation of substandard and falsified medicine, basically. So these are among challenges that also has led to the implementation of or the adoption of GS1 standards for traceability. We had problems with diversion of medicines from public sector and donor-supported programs, the inventory management not being optimal, and I'm sure that these problems are also the kind of problems that a lot of countries in Africa and across the world also face, and these are the challenges that necessitate the use of technology to ensure we're able to track and trace products and have control of the supply chain.
Thank you for sharing that, John. And can you please talk a little bit more about exactly where you are right now on this journey of traceability?
So for Nigeria, I work with NAFDAC, NAFDAC is the Food and Drug Administration of the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration of Nigeria, National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control. And part of our mandate is to regulate and control the distribution, among other things, for food, drugs, medical devices, cosmetics. And this, mandate has put the burden of ensuring that there's drug security, the security of sale, of use of medicines upon the agency, and this has guided the development of a 5-year traceability implementation plan in line with the federal government national strategy. So, first of all, we started with ensuring that there is a federal government approved strategy, which is we call it the Nigerian National Pharmaceutical Traceability Strategy, which has been endorsed by the Honorable Minister of Health. We went further to draw up a 5-year plan that will guide us in implementing traceability within from 2020 to 2024. And we draw up a plan that will provide us visibility of products within the supply chain and provide us data to support pharmacovigilance, improve inventory control and management, and provide visibility of product status for products that are dated or expired or recalled, and also help in the protection of brand integrity for domestically manufactured goods, as well as improving the efficiency of reverse logistics, among other things. So after this development of this strategy, we did that strategy in 2019. We also have, like Nuran pointed, also support co-hosted the GS1 Healthcare conference in Lagos to, bring about the sensitization of other African countries. And there we signed a call to action where 25 African regulatory authorities and 6 financing donor organizations signed a call to action to steadfastly pursue pharmaceutical traceability across the African continent. GS1 organization, member organization in Nigeria, to, in terms of capacity building, we have trained a lot of stakeholders within the country. We have implemented the traceability pilot for COVID-19 vaccines, and currently we are tracking within the country. As I speak with you, I'm in a workshop already deploying scanners that we receive from support of donors to the public sector supply chains for the traceability pilots in the AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria supply chains. And with this also, we also have engaged our private sector, and we have come up with our draft regulation, which is already in the process of being gazetted. In a couple of months, it will then become enforceable. Currently, we have discussed with all our stakeholders. We've reviewed the guidelines over and over in meetings to ensure that they have guidelines that they can actually comply with. And these regulations now have been finalized, and it's in the process of being officially gazetted in the federal government gazette. So the activities carried out around the traceability of COVID-19 vaccines provided us learnings that we have captured and used in the that we have captured and used in the table now. We also have drawn guidelines for master data requirements, and we have been engaging other African countries also providing supporting Reliance visits. Recently, we received the Botswana Medicines Regulatory Agency that has come to understudy the work we are doing around traceability. So that's a summary of basically the things we have done and we currently are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have already a few questions coming into the chat box. Please feel free to put your questions and we'll take it. I think Dr. Nuran has a connection issue. The time she reconnects, maybe we can take one question. Check.
Stalking you in the distance. I don't know if anybody has had a bear stalking you in the distance. If it's far away, okay, you don't want it there.
So, I
Do
hope
you-
I'm audible now.
Yes, you are audible now. Do you have any
Okay.
question about the implication of the application of GS1 standard in Nigeria? The time that Nuran reconnects, and we can take question specifically to GS1. Okay, maybe we can take that question from Natal. He's Natal gone. So in the low-income countries, where are the multiple donors with conflicting policy to trace medicine on supply chain is so hard. Yeah, that's a fact.
Nati, I don't know if I can make a comment.
Yes, please make a comment on that.
Okay. So yeah, I also see that someone is asking about the trust application. That is an initiative of the verification and traceability initiative.
Hello, Nati.
Apart from the work we are doing in.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. John is just giving his feedback on one question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
you can go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, so apart from the work we are doing in Nigeria, implementing traceability and ensuring that we can get all the medicines within both the public and the private supply chains to be traceable. We also are engaged in activities with the verification and traceability initiative that has also come up with the trust application. And one work we also have done is being able to connect our national traceability system to the trust application. Currently, for medicines that are distributed in Nigeria, that are manufactured and procured by the donors, these manufacturers are connected to the trust system and are able to provide the serial numbers of the medicines that is distributed in medium and low income countries to the trust system. So the trust system is a pre-country verification system where the serial numbers of these products being distributed within countries are held, and countries that have existing traceability systems can connect to the trust and verify pack information that are in distribution in their countries from the trust. Currently, Nigeria's traceability system connects to the trust and is able to verify. So for countries also that do not have any verification system, the trust project has different modalities. There is the modality where we call the modality A, where there is a mobile application for the trust that countries can leverage upon to deploy in their own country to also be able to verify. There is another modality that can enable countries to customize the application, the mobile application, in their own language. Or if the country has an existing mobile application, they can connect that application to the trust using APIs that will verify to the trust. Or if they have national systems, they can connect. So the trust is a pre-country system that holds serial numbers for products distributed within countries that national systems can connect to. Having said that, we are aware, because of the work we do at the global level also, like in my introduction, it was said, I represent the country at the World Health Organization, the member state mechanism on substandard and falsified medicines. And one of the work we do is working with donors also to ensure that there is harmonization of the interventions. We know that there are multiple interventions from different donors, but the trust, the global verification and traceability initiative is that organization that is bringing all these donors together to ensure that there is harmonization and coordination of the interventions of the different donors. And one thing that is extremely important is that regardless of what the interventions of the donors may be, every country needs to have its own strategy. Every country needs to have a plan. Every country needs to come up with their own policy. If you do not have a plan, that is when you are going to be having conflicting priorities. But if you have a good plan in your country, then the donors will then have to connect and see how your plan or how their various plans align with your national strategy or with your national implementation. And that's what we have gotten right in Nigeria. Nigeria has its own 5-year implementation plan that we follow strictly, and also have budgets within the national space also to support that plan. So with that existing, donors, when they come, they just look at the points or the areas in your plan that aligns with their own objectives, and they provide funding to support those aspects of your plan. So you should have a plan first. You should come up with your own strategy for your country first towards implementing traceability, because traceability has to be owned by the various countries, not by the partners, not by the donors who will be supporting you, or by the different multiple supply chain stakeholders. You should have the country should have a national plan, and every other person who's going to be supporting will be able to support it. In low and medium countries, there is a lot of challenge, in terms of also funding and commitment of government agencies. But one thing countries need to do is, when you have a plan, you should have you should start small, do the little things first, ensure that the standards are complied with, do the regulation, then you can move on from there. So let me stop here. So if there are any other comments from Nuran or any other questions.
No, thank you. I think you touched on really a lot of the important pieces. Thank you for sharing that, John. I think there's a hand raised. There was a hand raised from Lawrence, but I think, did you change your mind? Lawrence Ekoch?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, you can ask your question, yes. Okay,
so Lawrence is my name. I support supply chain systems across 12 countries. I'm just wondering, most of the procurement we do, we source them from WHO pre-qualified suppliers. So if I want to set up a real-time or more like a track and trace system to, say, a country, Mozambique, what do you think? How do you suggest I do that? Yeah, so I'm just thinking a way to strengthen system, just so in case there's a recall and we need to do track and trace, how I can be guided, Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that question, Lawrence. So it's definitely possible to do that, but and there are mechanisms. I think the foundational pieces are also are the same, though, right? You need to have a regulation so that all the products have systematically the identification, then the data matrix, and then you need to also set up the systems and then introduce scanning. John, I don't know if you had spoken already while I was having some connection challenges about your COVID traceability. I think that would be a really great example, and perhaps maybe a generic response to like the realities of having a traceability.
Okay, so it is important, first of all, that you have the legal framework, first of all, because traceability requires quite what is it called? Requires some form of enforcement in terms of ensuring that the manufacturers they comply with the requirements of putting the necessary barcodes on the product as may be required. And one way you can get this done is to have a regulation within the country that mandates that the manufacturers would have to put the necessary barcodes. For the case of Nigeria, we have adopted the use of the GS1 standard barcodes. And we chose that because GS1 standards are the most widely accepted and used standards across the world. And that will be to make it easy for for us to be able to leverage on the fact that very many other countries across the world are implementing the standards. So first things first, you have to get to make it a requirement in that country for traceability to happen, that the manufacturers have to properly label these products that will be distributed in your country with the required standards. Then secondly, you then have to talk about building the necessary infrastructure to hold the data that will be provided to you by the manufacturers and by the supply chain stakeholders that will be scanning these products within the supply chain. So there's no traceability if there is no capture of data alongside the movement of the products. So once there's a change of custody of the product, there has to be associated master data capture. Master data and event data capture. So as the products are moving and changing custody, there has to be data capture. So the infrastructure to hold the data, the infrastructure to ensure that the products are being scanned as they move, those are the things also you have to look at. Then another thing is you also have to define the model, because traceability has quite a number of models. Do you want to implement a food track and trace model, or do you want to implement a verification model where you collect all the serial numbers and at the point of dispense you scan, which is a verification, or you scan compulsorily within every node of the supply chain when there is a change of custody of the products, which is you have a food track and trace model. You have to decide that. You have to also decide around the governance, because for traceability to happen is a multi-stakeholder involvement and engagement. So you have to also think about ensuring that there is a lot of training, a lot of engagement at the national level, so that it is if it is government driven, it is easier. We know that some countries have models where it's driven by the private sector, maybe complying to regulation or the other, but there has to be some legal requirements requiring traceability, and there has to be the necessary infrastructure, there has to be the necessary training, and there has to be the necessary engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. I think you captured the essence of it, and thank you for that. So, touching upon the last part about governance, can you talk a little bit more? And excuse me if you had already covered this, but I wanted you to talk a little bit more about the strategy, and that it was signed by the Minister of Health at the time in 2020, I believe, in the thick of the pandemic. So can you tell us a little bit more about why that was such a big deal, why it had to be signed by that one, and why that has, become almost the foundation of all the work that you have done, all of the success you've had so far to this day on traceability?
So the question also buttresses the comments I made last. For us to be able to have a traceability system established in the country, there has to be engagement at the highest levels. So for us, the strategy has to be, launched by the Honorable Minister representing the federal government of Nigeria. So this gives it the highest level of credence, and that makes it provides a kind of also a fundamental framework for which other activities for the implementation can, rest upon. So that will provide us the legal framework as well as the basis for which we are able to draw our own regulations that will then make provision to ensure that anybody who is defaulting can be penalized, or that there can be some form of enforcement to ensuring compliance with traceability within the supply chain. So it was a really big thing for us at that time, because in fact the launching was just around the time we had the pandemic, and the pandemic came for the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccines presented a unique opportunity for us as a country to also be able to test that strategy. And it was a huge success. We recorded in tracking and tracing COVID vaccines, currently all vaccines now, including routine immunization vaccines, are being scanned across the supply chain, and we have implemented the full track and trace system for vaccines in Nigeria, which we currently do. And for every country, you have to ensure that you have the establishment of this policy at the highest level. This will give credence to your implementation. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, John. So as a final point, I think I know looking at the time, we have 3 minutes to the hour, but I wanted to finish off with like maybe 3 main recommendations or best practices that you can put for the next country. What would you say are like this, based on your experience so far? I know you've touched a little bit on it or throughout your presentation, your responses to the question, but just if you can just say 1, 2, 3, these are what we recommend, for the next country, next organization that is starting this journey.
Okay, so the answer to this question will just be a summary of everything I've said. Number 1, get the legal framework, get the regulation, get the framework, the policy. Ensure that you have a policy that makes traceability requirements in your country. That's one. The second is ensure that there's a lot of engagement, because traceability is a multi-stakeholder activity. There has to be engagement of all stakeholders. Every one of them must be part of this implementation from the start. Then the third is you have to ensure that you have sufficient investment into the use of the standards. Identifying the standards is at the level of the policy. You should have defined all that in the policy. That's in the first step. The second step is engagement. Then the third step, have a clear plan for your implementation and put your resources, no matter how meager they are, you have to start from somewhere. So you start small, have a clear plan, and follow it through. And I believe with that, any country should be able to implement traceability. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, John, for your time and for your sharing. And I'm sure I can speak on your behalf that anytime you need anything, any more learnings from Nigeria, don't hesitate to get back to the team. So just back to the audience, one last question I had for you. Can you please, Nati, if you can pass through the last poll that we had prepared for today?
Yes, sure. Okay. Shared. So we would like to have your So we'd like to have your thoughts about implementing the product traceability using GS1 standards.
Nati, can you now display the results, please?
Sure. Okay, most of the people said that it's complex but necessary.
And that's exactly the response that we're looking for. I think we have managed to obviously introduce at a high level what it is and the work that needs to happen. If anybody said it was too easy, let's do it tomorrow, then I would have said, okay, we need to repeat this session. So I think that really sums up what we have, intended to share with you. Hopefully you have a general idea, and this was supposed to be a teaser. You're not, the expectation was not that you're suddenly traceability experts, and that's why you will also have access to our contact information. So please reach out if the responses we provided were not thorough enough and you want to learn more. There's a lot of conversations. There's a lot of conversations that are happening throughout Africa, throughout the world, around the same thing, really, product traceability, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, lots of conversations on that. So please reach out, ask questions, and then we're really happy to continue the conversation. So we hope that this session was helpful, despite the challenges that were there. So thank you for joining us. And well, Nati, back to you. Nati, is it just me? I don't think I can hear you.
Oh,
Is it just
okay.
me?
Sorry,
Yes,
yeah,
that's better.
my
Yes.
microphone was muted. So I was saying thank you very much to have taken your time to connect and exchange, and we are really happy of the exchange. And just as Professor Nuran has said, that's just a first overview, global overview, and feel free to send back your questions, and we'll also come back to you. So thank you very much. I will not drag the meeting longer. Have a good day, and thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.